Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm super, super excited to do this and see all your beautiful faces here. This presentation is called Enter Your Heart. And I'm someone who's very, very passionate about the heart because of personal experiences that I've had in my life. I know that the power that we possess within us is something that every single person should know about. And when you open your heart, when you live from your heart, when you live a heart-centered life, everything looks different. Circumstances look different, people look different, difficulties look different, challenges look different. We're living in a world where we all live from our heads, right? We're in the head all the time, the mind, the thinking, the analyzing. And the heart is really just about knowing. It's about trust. It's about faith. It's about not having to understand every single thing before you get there and just trusting the journey. So for me, the reason I wanted to do this topic specifically is because I think all of us, people who get care here, if you're new here, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. We all want to be better. We want to make the world a better place through our actions, through who we are, through the things that we do. And I think when we live from the heart space, that's a natural thing. And I think as a society, as a culture, we're being called to live from our hearts. Because we're going to talk about it a little bit later, in ancient culture, throughout humanity, the heart has been a symbol for thousands of years. It's a very, very sacred organ. And tonight we're just going to talk about some of the biological reasons that the heart is so powerful and also some of the spiritual significance, the ancient significance of the heart. And we're going to get into it a little bit. And at the end, we're going to do a heart-opening meditation. So I'm going to guide you in a meditation where we're actually going to practice everything that we're learning. So to start off, we're just going to go into, so you guys should all have your devices open in front of you. Right now, it should be measuring your heart rate variability. And we're going to get into what that means specifically further on. Also, to start off, if someone steals your heart, do they get cardiac arrest? I forgot I had this joke. The high schoolers never laugh at this one, so thank you guys for laughing. I really appreciate that. So moving on. So what you have in front of you is, it's going to be like a little spinning wheel, and it's going to have different colors on it. And the red, really, it means incoherent, which isn't good or bad. It just is what it is. In that moment, there's an unclear signal being sent from your heart to your brain. So it's kind of like static, and there's not clear communication. In that moment, you might not be thinking straight. You might be thinking about other things. You might have some anxiety. Things might be going on in your outer environment, and it's affecting your inner environment. Blue is just like one step above that, so it's like middle coherent, not super highly coherent, right in the middle. Green is highly coherent. Green means that there's a very clear signal being sent from your heart to your brain. And we're going to dive way deeper into that when we get a little bit further. But that's the most important thing to remember for now. So if you want to keep like measuring your HRV just as we're sitting here, just notice like moment to moment what colors are popping up for you and where you might be in that moment. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you measure it? Do you push a
So you gotta, yours is actually, yeah, it should be measuring actively. Yeah, it's the little play button. You got it.
Okay. Thank
Yep,
you.
of course. So we're gonna start with talking about a little bit of my story and just how I ended up in this whole world of wellness. And I'm gonna be really vulnerable with you guys and just talk about my experience, my journey with opening my heart. We're also gonna go into the ancient significance of the heart. We're gonna talk about HRV a little bit more deeply, and then we're gonna meditate at the end. So a little bit about me. Here's some very vulnerable pictures for you guys. So the first picture that you see on the far left was me at a very, very difficult time in my life. Very, very low point. I think we can all say that the year 2020 was a dark night of the soul collectively, but individually it was also a very dark night of the soul for me. I just experienced something very, very sudden and traumatic that took something out of my life that meant the world to me at that time. And really, looking back at it now, I understand that that was my coming into myself. Because the grief that I experienced, if you guys have experienced grief, you know, it's a very, very powerful emotion that is always changing. It's never the same. I say it's like a shapeshifter. You're never gonna know how it's gonna show up. It's always there. You learn to live with it, but it changes you at a biological level. Grief is very, very powerful. So I dove into a pit of grief at that time that wasn't just the situation, the scenario, the traumatic event that happened that was coming up. It was everything from my childhood, things that had happened in my past, things that I had suppressed that were coming up to the surface to be felt. Because the heart wants you to feel. The heart wants you to recognize, what have you suppressed in your life? it's still living in your body. And if you get care here, then you know trauma lives within the body, right? We have memory in the body and it stays there. So for me, that first image was really just a time when I didn't know where hope was. I was very, very lost. I was using a lot of things outside of me to numb how I was feeling within. I was self-medicating with marijuana. I was just trying to numb myself in any way that I could because the feelings I was experiencing were so difficult for me that I could hardly move through life. And because I'm so supported and guided in my life, I had people around me that supported me and they knew that I needed something different, right? And so for me at that time, I was in college and I was like, I'm just gonna focus on college because I can control college. That's something that I can control. I can do well on my exams, I can study, I can control that. I needed to be able to control something because everything else felt out of control. So I dove into college. At that time, the way I like to say it is like there was a huge gap between how I was saying I was feeling and how I was actually feeling. I was very, very sad and very miserable. And I was under so much stress and anxiety in my emotional state that I had lost more than half of my body weight. It was really hard for me to sleep. Eating was difficult. I had actually lost my menstrual cycle at that time because I was under so much stress and so much anxiety and pain that my body was just starting to shut down almost. And it was actually around that time that I discovered organic living chiropractic. It always comes when you need it, right? And my sister actually was receiving care here and recommended that I come in. And I remember sitting down on the adjustment table for the first time. And it was during COVID, so I was wearing a mask. And Dr. Tad he took me through a somatic integration exercise of the trauma that I was dealing with. And even that, just expressing that in a different way was transformational for me. And it put me on a different path. And so I had graduated college, I'd finished school, still pretty miserable. But at that point, my dear, dear mother, who's sitting right here, her graduation present to me was a Dr. Joe Dispenza week-long meditation retreat in Mexico, which, incredible. Thank you, Mom, again, for that. Because it changed my life. It was exactly what I needed at that time. I needed something tangible that I could practice to change myself. And that's really what it was for me. So the first image you see was me on the beach in Cancun during a walking meditation. And the face is really just that powerful emotion coming from the heart. And at that time, I knew I had a heart, I knew it was there, but Dr. Joe, a huge part of his philosophy and his teaching is brain-heart coherence. So during his workshops, you learn how to get a coherent brain and heart throughout a whole week of meditating. So I was totally primed for this experience. We had meditated, his workshops, you meditate for up to 40 hours in 1 week. So I had a lot of meditation under my belt. It was the very last day of the event. And long story short, on the beach, the very last day, I had a healing that was really hard to describe with words. But the way I describe it is like I felt like I touched God. Like I was plugged into a light socket and I received a healing that changed everything for me. It put me on a completely different trajectory in my life. It was like a quantum jump into a new reality. And my heart was a huge part of that. It was a huge, huge part of that. And it was a very painful process for me, actually, like being vulnerable with that, being vulnerable in my heart, it just like ripped open. And it was painful, but it was also exactly what I needed. And laying on the beach, I received my menstrual cycle back. I got a biological cellular healing on that beach, and it changed everything for me. So ever since then, meditation for me, it's not like this, like, okay, let go of your thoughts. It's actually like the art of change is deeply ingrained in meditation. If you meditate correctly, right, it's really the art of changing yourself, changing habits, changing beliefs. And for me, that's what it was. So at that time, I just grabbed really tight to that work. I was meditating every single day because it changed everything for me. And after that, I felt like I was so full of so much goodness and I wanted to share it with people. I wanted people to know that there's another way to live. You don't have to live in stress and survival all the time. And for me, something that is really dear to my heart is kids and youth because they're the future of the world, first of all. But second of all, I think if we were all taught in school these things, this world would look way different than it does now. So I just kind of was looking for opportunities to access the heart of kids and be able to share this with them because it's really important. So, and that's the next slide. But also, so animals are a big part of this too, you guys. So another hat that I wear is I'm an animal intuitive. So I'm an animal communicator. So essentially what this means is that it's getting more popular now, this field, In the 70s, it was popularized by a woman named Penelope Smith. And animal communication is actually getting down to a science now. They're studying how this works. So in the quantum field, thoughts and feelings are all charges. So a thought is an electrical charge, a feeling is a magnetic charge. So if you have consciousness, then you're sending out signals every single moment. Every thought, every feeling, you're sending out signals. And we can attune ourselves to the signal, to the frequency at which animals communicate with one another. And we can receive messages from them. But it's a spiritual process, because you have to really get into your heart, because that's how animals communicate, is through the heart. It's through oneness, it's through wholeness and unity. One thing about animal communication is you can't ask an animal a question in the negative. You can't ask them, what do you hate? Because it doesn't compute for them. You have to ask them in the positive, because they operate in pure presence, in pure love. So I also had to really rip open my heart to refine that skill, because that's how animals communicate with one another. And something really cool about horses, HeartMath did a study on horses, the heart of horses. So the heart of a horse is 5 times larger than the heart of a human. So we all have electromagnetic fields around us, around every organ in our body, and our heart has the biggest field. A horse's heart field is 15 times bigger than the heart field of a human. So when you step within 15 feet of a horse, you're in a very, very coherent magnetic field, because the heart of a horse beats way, way slower because it's so much bigger. So this is why equine assisted therapy is so beneficial, because when you step close to a horse, your heart starts to come into syntropy with the horse's heart, and it starts to slow down because their fields are so powerful. So I always believe that animals are healers. They're angels that came here to help us, to guide us on our journey, and it's been a big part of my journey is involving animals in that as well. So super cool. So next, as I was mentioning about the youth and the kiddos, by amazing divine intervention, I actually got the opportunity to teach over at Coronado High School. The way it happened was just so divine, because I'm not a teacher. I don't have teaching certification. I don't have any credentials to be a teacher. I just had a passion. I had something that I wanted to do. And because I had taken that time to open my heart, I was seeing different opportunities that I wouldn't have seen with a narrow focus and stress, right? I had an open focus, so I received many opportunities. And here's, I forgot I had the laser. Dr. Tad actually got to give a talk to my class, which was really great. So I taught freshmen in the fall, and I taught sophomores in the spring. So the devices that you guys are all using, I work very closely with the HeartMath Institute to bring these teachings into schools and into the hands of youth. The devices you guys are using have been used by all of these students. So that's why I had you clean off the ear with swabs, because they're teenagers, you know. So they've taught me a lot. I mean, I go in there, I'm like, I'm going to teach you something, but it's really like the kids who've taught me a lot about the truth. And I know this for sure now, that this is our natural state is service. Our natural state is to uplift one another. Our natural state is to be in presence, in truth, in faith. An altered state is stress. Altered state is survival. In the world, we're taught, oh, it's normal to be anxious all the time. It's not. That's an altered state of consciousness. And kids taught me that, because it's easy for them to open their hearts. They're so in tune with themselves. They have those slower brain waves. They're not in that programmed conditioning as much as we are. And again, I think it's important to access them now, because the way Dr. Joe describes it is, if you have an emotional reaction to something and it goes on for days and days, it's a mood, it turns into a temperament, and then it turns into a personality trait. So for me, it's like, if you can access kids and make sure that they don't turn their emotional outbursts into personality traits, then you can change a culture. Because accessing kids at a young age and giving them this truth is really transformational for them. And they've taught me a lot of things. So we meditate in class, we learn about brain-heart coherence, we do a bunch of different cool things, and I've learned a lot through this process. So really cool part of that. So moving on, we're going to talk about a little bit of the ancient significance of the heart, because the heart has been a conversation in human culture for thousands of years, in symbolism, in books. So in the Holy Bible, the word heart is used over 800 times. So it's a very, very important topic and a very sacred book. One of my favorite scriptures is, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Everything you do flows from it. And I think we can all know when there's a switch to when it's flowing from our heads or if it's flowing from our hearts. It's a very clear difference, you can tell. So the ancient Greeks actually believed that the heart had its own thoughts. It was the seat of the soul. It could make decisions. In the Iliad in 762 BC, Homer wrote that hateful is the man who hides one thing in his heart and speaks another. So as alluding to the fact that the heart has thoughts and the heart has intentions. And the Egyptians actually believed that they didn't really care about the brain. The Egyptians didn't really, upon death, they would actually, this is pretty graphic, but they would remove the brain through hooks in the nasal cavity and discard of it because they just didn't care about it. They said the heart was the most important organ in the body. The heart held its own thoughts. It was the source of human wisdom, as well as all of the emotions you experience is through the heart. The memory, the soul was held within the heart. They also believe that upon death, your heart would be weighed against the weight of a feather. And if your heart was heavier than the feather, you would be cast into darkness and devoured. And if it was lighter than a feather, you would spend eternity in bliss. So a lot of ancient cultures, you can see all the images of the heart in different ancient drawings. So it's a very, very important organ in all cultures throughout time. So the HeartMath Institute is actually uncovering that a lot of this has some truth to it, not the being devoured in darkness, but there's a lot of truth to the consciousness of the heart and to the intelligence of the heart. And these ancient cultures kind of uncovered that. So I think we're coming into, as a society, as a culture, into this truth, and the HeartMath Institute is doing a lot to ensure that we have real scientific research that shows the power of the heart. So this is a really cool thing. So your heart actually possesses its own intrinsic nervous system. So this is how heart transplants work. So when a heart is placed into a new individual, it can operate independent of any other nerve connections by itself because of its own intrinsic nervous system. So it eventually makes those nerve connections, but at first it just operates by itself with its own system. So pretty cool. The HeartMath Institute calls it the heart brain because it's so intelligent, because it has memory, it has wisdom. There's 40,000 neurons. It gives the heart the ability to independently sense, to process information, to make decisions, and to even demonstrate a type of learning and memory. So we've talked a little bit about, if you guys get here, as I mentioned before, we know the body has memory. The body remembers things that happen to us, remembers trauma, remembers situations that might have changed us. And the heart is a huge part of this. I like to describe it to my students as your heart holds your memories of how you felt in your life. And we're living in a time where it's a lot safer to live with a closed heart because, you can open your phone and find 15 reasons to keep your heart closed. But really, when you open your heart, when you have the courage and the bravery to live from that space, you change people. You change yourself, because if you're around somebody and you have an open heart, your field influences their field. So there's a lot of power to that. And it all begins right here. And we all possess this within us. I think we walk around and just kind of forget, oh, it's just an organ. It's just actually, it's much deeper than that. And for me, it was a huge part of my transformation in my life. So moving on, let's see. So about the heart field, so this is how we influence other people. So as I kind of just mentioned, so we all have a magnetic field around us, right? And the HeartMath Institute has measured that the human heart has a field that can extend to 10 feet outside of the body. And this is when we're in coherent states. So if you look at this, you guys have probably seen this before from David Hawkins. So when we're operating down here in, shame, grief, apathy, our heart field only extends, the way I describe it is probably this far out of the body, because we're operating in incoherence. We're not thinking straight. But when we access these higher states, when we're in love, reason, acceptance, willingness, our field expands to about 10 feet outside of the body, and this has been measured before. So when we meditate later, the way I kind of like to describe it is you can call in emotions to your body without having a reason to feel them. You can feel them yourself. You can call in these emotions. So once we get into the heart, you guys can call in this joy. You can call in peace. You can call in understanding. You don't need a reason to feel that way. You can just call it into yourself. And the heart is a really big part of that. The heart is a huge assistant in that. So the way we kind of interact with other people, your heart speaks for you long before you do. So if you walk into a space, the way I describe it is, we walk into a space and there was just a big argument that was in that space. You can cut the tension with a knife. You just know somebody just fought somebody and you can feel it in the air. And that's not just a metaphorical woo-woo thing. It's a quantum truth. You can feel the energy in the air. And we're taught, and you guys understand this, we're taught we have 5 senses. We actually have more senses. We can sense. We can sense energy in the field. We can sense changes in the field. And the heart is a really big part of that. You also know when you walk into a space where love was shared, where it was maybe a music concert or a yoga class. You can feel the energy difference. That's something that we all are capable of doing. So later when we meditate, I'm just going to challenge everybody to really get that field extended, because you're going to be able to feel it in the air when people's hearts are open. It's a really, really wonderful feeling. So when you're connecting with people that you love, this is how our hearts are connecting to each other. They're always connecting. Even if we can't see it or we're not conscious of it, our hearts are always communicating with one another. And you also know when you're around someone that just feels like sunshine, right? Somebody that when you're with them, they uplift you, right? It takes no effort. You just have to be around them and you can feel it. It's because their heart fields are big and you feel very safe around that person. It's actually a quantum truth that being around somebody who uplifts you, there's something to it. It's not just metaphorical. So, I got another one. So the magnetic field produced by the heart is actually more than 100 times greater in strength than the field generated by the brain. So the field around the brain goes to about here, but the heart, it's always changing. It's getting bigger and it's getting smaller, and it's much more powerful than the field on the brain. The brain's important, don't get me wrong, but what we're actually finding, HeartMath Institute has studied that the heart actually sends 80% more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. So in the communication between the two, the heart's doing most of the talking, 80% more of the talking. So we should absolutely, when people say listen to your heart, we should absolutely be consulting our heart when we're making big decisions or we're trying to move through a difficult situation. The heart is always has wisdom that we can access, and it's sending a lot of signals to the brain. So why do we measure HRV? Like, what's the point of seeing what color's in front of you? So HeartMath has research that when we have heart patterns like this, and they're a little bit sporadic, the way that one of my students actually illustrated it really, really well. So the heart and the brain, it's like static. When you're out of sync or when you're incoherent, the signal that's being sent is like static. It's like, think of it like an orchestra playing at all different times. There's no order, it's just chaos. So when you're in that state, you're not thinking clearly. It's what's called cortical inhibition. So when there's an unclear signal, you can't think straight. You can't make conscious decisions, right? You could be influenced by the feelings of others, by something that happened in the past, by trying to predict things. So you can't think straight when there's an unclear signal being sent. That's how powerful the heart is. And the opposite is true. When you have a clear signal being sent, so when you're in the green, you can think straight. It's cortical facilitation. So you can have a bigger perspective on things. You're not so focused on the stress and the survival because you have a broader focus. You can think of things you hadn't have thought of before. You can get creative insights, right? So you think of like all the greatest artists in the time. They had very coherent brains and coherent hearts because they were able to access creativity to different levels. So take this into your life and whatever you do in your craft. Get coherent before you make a big decision. Get coherent before you draw your art. Get coherent before you get into anything because your heart has so much creativity and wisdom. And when you're coherent, you can actually access these different fields. So that's a huge part of that. So decision making is another one. You can make much clearer decisions. And here's the thing about this is a huge reason I want to do this class too is so you guys can have practical tools to carry into your life. You can do this when you're sitting in the car, when you're about to have a difficult conversation with someone. It's called quick coherence, and we're going to learn that a little bit. But it's easy, it's practical. You don't have to go sit in a dark room and meditate for an hour. It's really just breathing into your chest. It's thinking of something positive, something that brings the feeling of love into your body, breathing slower and deeper than usual, and that's already making a change in your body. So you can do this at any time in your life. When you're on the phone, someone's yelling at you, just breathing into your chest, it opens up so much. It helps you to think clearer, and the heart is a huge, huge part of that. So we all know that, if you receive care here, you know that we don't want to live in this survival stress culture. And the way I kind of describe this to my students is animals, this is the difference between humans and animals in survival. So an antelope being chased in the Sahara, they have all the same chemicals of stress that we do. Cortisol, norepinephrine, and adrenaline is flowing through the body of that antelope because it's saying, now is a time to survive. I need to get out of this situation. I'm not thinking about eating. I'm not thinking about drinking. I'm thinking about surviving. That's all they can think about. So let's say they're being chased and the antelope escapes. The antelope gets out scotch-free and survives. So the lion goes away, the antelope's standing under a tree, and this is the difference between humans and animals. The antelope is not going to be thinking for the next week about why did that lion choose me to chase? I ran like a fool and I'm embarrassed. Why did he choose me? I should have gone that way when I could have gone that way. they don't mull over things. They don't create narratives. They don't create stories. So the survival chemicals don't last in the body because the body's not in survival anymore. So what actually all prey animals will do actually is they will stand stationary and their body will go into a stage of regeneration. So the whole body will shake vigorously for up to 10 minutes. They'll lay on their stomach, they'll shake because those cortisol, those chemicals are flowing and releasing from the body because they don't have the huge prefrontal cortex that tells stories about everything. They actually can release these chemicals. And they've evolved because they can't live with survival chemicals. It's maladaptive. This is the problem with our stress culture is, you know, the lion becomes your boss or someone you don't like or somebody who cuts you off in traffic. And it causes that same stress reaction that the antelope is experiencing, but there's no lion chasing you. You can't run, fight, or hide. You're just like in your car in traffic. So what's happening is your heart is beating very incoherently against a closed system. So what this does is it causes these stress chemicals to come to the surface and to make a place in your body. And this is why it's so important to, you know, come get adjusted. Have tools in your life that you can use to get out of survival mode because survival causes dis-ease. It causes stress. It causes long-term stress mode. It causes health issues. This is why we're seeing in the world the chronic pain crisis, the health crisis that we're seeing, especially in America. We are living in a state of survival that our bodies cannot sustain. So this stuff with the heart, it's not just this like foo-foo, oh, connect with your heart. It's like, it's actually really important to get yourself out of stress because we are not evolved. We're not adapted to live with the chemicals of stress in our bodies 24/7. So about meditation, how I kind of mentioned to you guys earlier, the reason I enjoy Dr. Joe meditations is because it is about letting go of your thoughts, but it's also about changing your brainwaves. So when we meditate tonight, when I guide you guys in this meditation, I'm going to teach you a little bit of an exercise before we start. And if you guys have done Dr. Joe meditations, then you kind of know how this works. But the way I like to describe it to my students is it's really important to have an open awareness because when we're in stress, when we're in survival, when we're in fight or flight mode, what do? We have a very narrow focus on whatever the problem is. We focus very narrowly on whatever is causing dysregulation in our bodies. It's like this, it's like tunnel vision all the time. And we can't really see other perspectives because we're so focused in on what's disturbing us. So with meditation, really what you're doing is you're broadening your focus, you're opening your awareness. And what this does is this slows your brain waves down. And most of us are, I mean, right now, everybody, you're kind of awake, paying attention. You're in beta brainwaves. So this is the brainwaves that we're in when we're, you know, we could be at work or working on our computer or we're doing something important or we're in a class, we're thinking, we're focused. But if we live in beta all the time, if we're always focused on something, especially if it's something that's painful to us or something that's stressing us out, this is what puts the body into dysregulation. So as we tune into our hearts, as we open our awareness and open our focus, this is what starts to slow our brainwaves down. So in alpha, this is where the inner critic goes away, the inner roommate, the thoughts that you're always having, the inner critic goes away and you start to see more in pictures, you're more imaginative, you're more creative. And you can access these, maybe you guys, if you guys have been in a flow state with whatever you do that you love in your life, you access alpha because you're in a much more creative state. You're not being controlled by your ego, your inner critic or anything like that. Your brainwaves are slowing down, so you're slowing down. And you'll notice this, it's a shift in the body, and sometimes you'll notice you'll switch into alpha, say, oh, I switched into alpha, and then you go back to beta. So it really is just like the art of being very patient with yourself. And I'm not saying tonight we're gonna meditate for 2 hours and go into beta and have spiritual experiences, but it's important to understand the art of meditation before just going into it, because it really is about giving your body a chance to stop focusing on what's wrong, to stop focusing on stress, stop focusing on survival, because it organizes. You're giving innate intelligence a chance to actually heal, to heal you in different ways. So that's why meditation is so powerful. So as we move forward, actually let's do an exercise really quick. So when I say opening your awareness, it can be kind of like, what does that mean? So this is an exercise I like to do with my students. So if you look at the S on alpha waves, and everybody just like fix your eyes on that S, and just keep your eyes completely focused on that S. So right now you're in beta, you're totally focused on that S, and as your eyes are locked in on the S, open your awareness to the space in the room. So keep your eyes locked, But with your peripheral vision, open your awareness. So notice the colors that are around, the lights in the room, and you'll feel a switch. When you're no longer narrowly focused on something, when your awareness is open, that's the art of meditation. So it's basically that, but with your eyes closed. So that's having a broader or a more open focus, and that's what we're going to do when we meditate later. Did everybody kind of feel a shift when they opened their awareness a little bit? Did you guys feel it change a little bit? And that's really all it is. Yeah. So it's just about what's around me, what are the sounds that I'm hearing, it's opening your focus, and that's changing your brainwaves. When you practice that enough, your brainwaves will start to slow down. And tonight specifically, we're going to meditate around the heart center. So we're going to kind of open our awareness a little bit, and then we're going to tune into the heart. This is a very powerful center of energy in the body. So, and you guys know, if you're here, you know this is a very, very safe space where we love all emotions. We celebrate that here. So if anything comes up for you, just allow it to be what it is. Allow it to be what it is. This is a very, very safe space. It's going to be about a 20-minute meditation, not that long, but we're just going to practice this, and you're going to be able to feel the heart. And it's different for everybody. I like to say, like, my journey has been what it is going to Dr. Joe workshops, but you do not need to go to a Dr. Joe workshop to practice these things. You can do this on your own. It's the age of information, right? So the heart, it's a different journey for everybody. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for your heart to trust that it's safe to open, because a lot of us have been through situations where the heart doesn't know if it should trust, doesn't know if it should open. And I encourage you after tonight to just keep practicing this. And there's different meditations that you can find on YouTube, and I'm going to tell you guys about some coherence techniques that you can practice through the HeartMath Institute. You can practice it on your own, and you'll start to notice the world looks a little bit different when you're living from your heart. It really, really does. You're not always analyzing and thinking, and getting into alpha is where that inner analyzer goes away. You're not analyzing, you're just present. Does that make sense to everybody? Does anybody have any questions on this? Difficult anatomy questions I will be pointing to Tad, because I do not know. Does everybody understand, like, opening your awareness? You guys kind of understand that? Yeah. And I'm going to have you guys just, like, focus on your heart during this. And that really means just sending, like, right now when you're sitting, can you send your awareness into your feet? You guys can do that? And send your awareness into your hands. So that's really all it is. It's sending your awareness, your focus, into your heart. Because the way Dr. Joe says it is, where attention goes, energy flows. So when you focus on a certain part of your body, you're sending your attention and your awareness, which is very powerful. If you guys know about, like, the observer effect, when you observe something, it changes, right? So when you focus on your heart, you focus on different parts of your body, it starts to change. You can't see it maybe, but there's a lot happening underneath the surface that you might not be aware of. Does that make sense to everybody? You guys ready to meditate? Feeling good? I'm getting some glazed over looks right now.
We're already meditating.
I know, you guys are already, like, changing your brainwaves. It's amazing. Okay, so if you guys need to go use the restroom or anything, you can definitely do that now. It's going to be about 15 to 20-minute meditation, so if you need to get water or anything, you can do that. And I'm just going to pull up my audio here. Just find that comfortable seated position. Let your eyes flutter closed. I want you guys to just do a little scan of your body. Just notice where you might be holding tension in the body. Let your shoulders relax. Loosen your face. Relax your jaw. Loosen your stomach. And just feel the weight of your body on the chair. send your awareness into your feet, into the connection with the earth. And let everything else in your life just float away right now. There's nowhere you need to be right now. There's nothing you need to be doing except giving yourself this gift. It's normal for thoughts to come into the brain. I just want you to become the observer of those thoughts. You have thoughts, you are not your thoughts. And as thoughts come up, just place them into a little bubble and let them float away. Allow yourself to become completely present in this space. We're gonna do a little breathing exercise as a group. So we're gonna start by exhaling all of the stagnant air out of our lungs together. So it sounds like this. Just exhale all of that air out completely. And we're gonna inhale to a count of 4. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, and exhale. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, and inhale. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, and exhale. 2, 3, 4. Just one more. Now inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and exhale. Let it out with a sigh. And just let it all go. Just notice how different you feel. Your breath is a very powerful tool to bring yourself into presence. You can breathe normally now, but continue the journey of the breath throughout your body. Just breathe into any areas of the body that feel tense or tight. Just allow your breath to be deep into the belly, into the chest. And feel this bringing peace to your being. Just begin to pay attention to how it feels to be in this body. This is the body that you were given to explore this world, to wrap your arms around the people you love, we often spend too much time wishing our bodies would be different. Take this time now to be in loving relation with your body. Appreciate it for carrying you, for keeping you safe. You have a body. You are the soul. And just continuing to release any tension in the body, relaxing into your chair. Your body is perfect, just the way it is. Take this time to appreciate it. Continuing to breathe deeply throughout the whole body. We often walk around and forget the magic that lies within us. Your body is truly a miracle. If you were to unspiral your DNA and stack it end to end, it would go from the sun to Pluto 17 times. There is an incredible amount of information embedded inside of your beingness. Recognize the work that your body does. We don't have to think about blood flowing through our bodies, it just happens. Take this time to appreciate that. Now, with your eyes closed, start to open your awareness, open your focus to the space in the room. As you look into the darkness behind your eyelids, move further into it. Notice the temperature in the room, how the air feels. Continue to open your awareness, to broaden your focus. Continuing to breathe deeply. Now, if it feels right for you, you can place your hand over your heart to have a deeper connection with it. To find your heartbeat. Send all of your attention and your energy into your heart space, into your chest. And I want you to imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart. You can imagine a color, a symbol. Just allow your breath to flow in and out of your heart. And as you do this, call to mind the love that you have in your life. Think of people, of places, think of memories, animals. Continuing to breathe into your chest as you call to mind all that you can love in this life. Just allowing that feeling of love. The gratitude to get to be who you are, to get to love those that you love. breathe slowly and deeply into your chest. And as you do this, the arteries in your heart will expand, releasing oxytocin and other beautiful chemicals to fill your body with light. The heart's electrical field is about 60 times greater in amplitude than the electrical energy generated by any other organ. Feel the power in your heart. Send your heart gratitude for keeping you alive. Through everything in your life, your heart has been there. And just take this time to work with your heart, to be patient. Continuing to breathe slowly into your chest. Thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. And what is the language of your heart? How does it speak to you? Just get quiet enough to hear it. Feeling the weight of your body on the chair. Feeling your heart beating. Just set this moment as the beginning of a new relationship with your heart. When we live from our heart space, life is not a burden. Life is a gift. And feel that truth within your body. Continuing to breathe deeply into the chest. In the difficult times of life, through the disappointment, through the uncertainty, when we connect with our wholeness, when we connect with our hearts, it helps us to see that life is not happening to us, that life is happening for us. See yourself in your life. How would you walk differently? living from your heart? How would you act in difficult situations? What support could you give others? How can you uplift humanity? And as you breathe into your heart, offer yourself gratitude for moving through life, for continuing to show up, to do your best, despite what your past might look like. Give yourself gratitude for being willing to connect with your heart. Think of the things that you're proud of, that you've done in your life, things that you've accomplished. And just feel that love, that gratitude, filling your heart space. And make a commitment here to yourself to live from your heart, to give more than you receive, to laugh and play, to have a childlike wonder when things have gotten too serious. To move through life knowing that you're loved, that you're guided, that you're looked after. And offer yourself all the love that you deserve. It's right here within you. This life is a miracle. It's an experiment. And just feel gratitude and excitement for the gifts in store for you. Continuing to breathe into the chest, into the heart, feeling it expand, letting it know that it's safe. It's safe now. To feel, to connect, to open. Just notice how different you feel. You're giving your body a chance take a break from the stress of life. Your heart is coherently connecting with your brain in this moment. Just continuing to breathe deeply. If you feel ready, you can start to wiggle your fingers and your toes, just breathing yourself back into awareness, back into this space. If you're still feeling bliss of connection, don't feel the need to exit that state. We're just going to start to come back. You can stretch a little bit. Whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes. You guys did amazing. That was 23 minutes long. How's everybody feeling?
Great.
Relaxed?
Very relaxed.
Good. Good. So again, we don't need to meditate for an hour to feel better. Really, it's a quick coherence technique where if you're about to have a hard conversation or if you're in traffic, what I do is I just send my awareness and my focus into my heart, and I just breathe slower and deeper than usual into my heart. And I call those feelings of gratitude. I do the same thing that we did when you call to mind the things that you love or the people you love, the places you love. You do that. And it's a quick method that opens the communication between your heart and your brain. And you'll notice that you can move through life with a lot more grace, a lot more coherence when you practice that. So it's called a quick coherence technique. It's super simple. This is what I teach to the kids too. So you just focus on the area of your heart. You imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart. And you feel appreciation, you feel care. Because what we're all learning is that we don't need a reason outside of us to feel anything. We can cultivate feelings within ourselves. And the more you do this, the more you're training your body to feel these elevated emotions, like love and peace and joy, no matter what's happening outside of you. You can cultivate that in your inner environment. That's a power that we all have. We're just never taught that. So learning that is a really, really amazing tool. And I'm definitely not perfect. I fall from grace a lot, but coming back to this understanding that my energy is my responsibility and I can change how I feel. I can change my state. And meditation is a wonderful way to do that. Getting adjusted is a wonderful way to do that. Different tools that we all have to get out of survival. I think everyone here understands that we can't keep living in this survival culture the way that we are. It's not, humans are not supposed to live like this. And people, everyone in here, you guys give me hope. It gives me hope that people are willing to let me teach high schoolers. It gives me, there's people that understand that this survival culture can't sustain. So little things like that, changing yourself, expanding your heart field, you impact others. People can feel that when they're around you. It changes them, right? It's really, really, it's a powerful tool that we all have. So you guys did amazing. This was such a great class. Does anybody have any reflection or anything they want to, any experiences, anything they want to mention? Stephanie?
Well, you were talking about thoughts of the language of the brain, feelings of the body.
Mm-hmm.
I felt this just powerful white light out of the heart. I don't know, maybe I'm feeling it from others as well, but that came through.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, I love when colors come through too. That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Just zenned out. Everybody's ready for bed now, huh? Well, thank you guys so much for coming. If you have any more questions or anything, you can ask anybody on the staff, but thank you.
And just real quick before everybody heads out, Haley just gave us an incredible gift tonight. And the best thing that we can do with any gift is to share it, is to spread more. We have these same types of things the second Thursday of every month where we're learning, we're practicing. Really, we're coming all together as a coherent field because we're all in the process of improving ourselves. As Haley talked about, being in survival mode is the major cause of death and disease in our world today. We've conquered most of everything else. All of our major diseases, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, all of our major diseases, they are all degenerative diseases. We are degenerating because when we're in survival mode, we're not in growth mode. And survival is very black and white. We are either surviving or we're not. You can't get more survival. You either are or you're not. But what we all want is we want to thrive. We all want more growth. We want more awareness. And that's going to come through education, like some of what you got tonight. The awareness that you'll get whenever you practice this thing by yourself, and the education that you're giving yourself just by doing these types of practices. So all of us really need to take responsibility for what's happening in our culture and our society right now. And we need to be measuring our health. All of our measurements that we have are based on what we don't want. They're based on survival. They're based on avoidance. We don't want the disease. Early detection and prevention of disease is not really health care, because health care is about awareness, education, and growth. If we're not growing, we're degenerating and moving towards disease. So just keep in mind, what are you doing in your own life that you want more of? How are you measuring this? Do you know if you're actually getting it? Right? Raise your hand if you want more ease, if you want more coordination, if you want more efficiency. These are the things that we need to take responsibility for and actually measure to know, are we moving towards wellness and health, or are we moving towards death and disease? Because staying still is not an option in an ever-changing universe. So if you're interested and you are already not a part of the Organic Living Chiropractic community, get with Marsha at the end of this, get with Haley at the end of this, and sign up for a free discovery call where you get to chat with Haley, and she'll help you to identify what is it that you're really going for more of your life. What is it that you can grow and you ultimately can share with others? And is there a way that we can help support you in that? So again, let's all give Haley a big, big round of applause. Thank you so much. Give yourselves a round of applause for showing up and doing the work. And please, please, please come next month. We're actually going to do the practical version of what we learned last month, which is how do we take a painful experience and how do we turn it into pleasure and growth. We're not going to be chatting much about the science. We're actually going to get to the nitty gritty, and I'm going to walk somebody through it, and then we're all going to do it together. So it's just going to be the practical. It's just going to be the fun stuff. And we're going to ask you to please bring someone along. If before we do the class, you have to have watched the class before so you know what's going on and why we're doing this wacky stuff. So if you'd like to bring someone, please connect with Haley, and we'll get their email, and so that we can send them the class so that they'll know what's happening before we get here. So thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate you guys.
Thanks, guys.